Democratic Congresswoman Eddie Bernice Johnson of Dallas, thank you so much for joining us. We really do appreciate your time. So as you know, there's a lot of debate in Washington and around the country as to whether we are in a recession or not. After there have been two consecutive quarters now where GDP has dropped. And so I'm wondering, where are you on all this?
Well, I think that we need to do what is on the books to try to change that. We have more and more jobs and more people getting hired, and we are attempting to address that issue as we speak.
And so, well, first, let me ask you just about that. What specifically do you think can be done to ease inflation?
Well, actually, I'm not sure that we're going to be able to ease all inflation, but I think that once we get the work out from the bill that was passed last week and get the semiconductors available and increase the supply chain, business will be soaring. And we've also put into that same bill the building of a good workforce so that we can depend on American workers at all levels, anywhere, to be prepared to do those jobs.
And before I talk a little bit more about the CHIPS Act, what are you hearing from your constituents as far as the economy is concerned? Are they worried about a recession?
Well, I have not heard the word so much about recession, but there have been some concerns about the cost of gas, the lack of child care, the various areas that we have attempted to address. There's some concern about the cost of health care, um, and also concern about whether or not we can do anything about expanding Medicaid, which this state is one of the few that has never done. So those are the kinds of concerns that people have: the cost of health care, the availability of health care, our hospitals are concerned. But all of those issues are on the table. We're trying very hard to address all of those issues. Some of what we're going through is just a part of some changing of direction and focusing on the future. And I think that in a month or two, you'll see a really big difference when we get the bill over from the Senate and pass it. And the bill that we just passed will make great differences in the lives of many.
So let me ask you before we move on, just on the economy, how concerned are you that the economy is going to be, and the concerns about food prices, inflation, et cetera? I know gas has come down recently, but it's still higher. But how concerned are you of the potential impact that will have in November on the election?
Well, I never really get so concerned about the impact on elections, but I do get concerned about the impact on people. I think that when the people understand that how hard we're working to try to address those issues of which they have concern, that they will see a difference, and they see a difference in approaches, and see that we're trying very hard. And I think that we'll see those results.
So you don't think it'll be the impact will be more on the Democrats, that'll hurt Democrats in the fall?
Well, I don't know that it would hurt Democrats. I think that it's a lot more factors that are going on, a lot of misinformation, a lot of political information that people have to sort through. But I feel very confident in the American people that they will see the differences in how the two parties are struggling along to try to make it better for the working people, trying to make sure that issues that concern the working people are issues of which we are trying to impact.
You mentioned before the CHIPS Act, which passed in the Senate and the House, and I believe the president is going to be signing that. And that was that is giving incentives for companies to expand chip production in the United States. And that includes announcements that have taken place here in the state of Texas. I believe there are two facilities north of the Dallas-Fort Worth area and also in Central Texas as well. So talk to me about the benefits of this and why you think this is money well spent by taxpayers to make this happen.
Well, the supply chain will improve. Right now, as you know, the semiconductor was developed right here with Texas Instruments, Dr. Jack Kilby. And we need that supply chain because now there is a chip in everything we do. People are waiting for new cars, they are waiting for all kinds of products, and also the jobs that produce those products will now be getting to work. I am very, very pleased with that bill that came from my committee and all of the provisions that we placed with that bill, including NASA, will improve efforts to address the economy and security. We cannot forget that we have to have national security. But in that bill, we have put a lot of money for research because we cannot keep up and be ahead of the rest of the world without that. And we have put a lot of emphasis on training and opportunity for every community, decentralizing research hubs, which I think, yes, Texas will gain a lot, I believe. Obviously, Texas Instruments, we have a Taiwanese company opening in the north area and in central Texas around Austin. We have another hub of chip production. So yes, Texas will gain quite a bit, as other states will too, but we probably will gain more than many states. Probably Ohio will be another major state. It depends on where many of these companies are located, but it will be a positive thing for everyone because supply chains will be in a position to reduce the deficit of supply chains.
And as it relates to national security, the thought is, much of the production is in China and elsewhere, and so that puts the United States behind the eight ball. Is that right?
Yes, we're going to catch up, and we're going to hopefully stay ahead. This all started with us, but as you know, there's a difference in how these two locations operate with their people. In a democracy, things move a little bit slower. In a communist country, the advantage is that they just dictate. But we intend to be competitive. We intend to protect our borders. We intend to protect our goods, and we intend to produce these semiconductors in this country.
Well, what do you make of the deal that was struck between Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and Democratic Senator Joe Manchin that will spend $369 billion on climate funding, include negotiations for drug prices for Medicare, $80 billion for IRS enforcement, additional money, and about $313 billion in new taxes from a 15% minimum tax on corporations. I know that's still being worked out in the Senate, but if it is approved there, it will go over to the House. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, if it's approved, I will study it well, but likely vote for it because I think that it gets a portion of what the president has been attempting to do for a while now. And I think that we all have to gain from it. We've got to have a balance. We've got to make sure that we don't overtax the low income. And obviously not to overtax the businesses, but we know about where we can balance that. And I hope that's what we'll see in this bill. They were still working on the bill, and we are on standby to go back next week to address that bill when it comes to the House.
How concerned are you? There have been some criticism by Republicans that this is not the right time when there's an economic slowdown to have impose new taxes on businesses, et cetera. So what's your thought about that?
Well, we're putting a lot more strength in our businesses by the passing of the CHIPS Act. So we've got to make sure that we put some strength within the people as well that are not big business owners.
And I wanted to ask you, in the past week, the mayor of Washington, D.C. has made headlines by requesting help from the National Guard as it relates to folks who have entered the country illegally and then are going up on buses from the state of Texas, from the state of Arizona to the nation's capital. What do you make of all this?
Well, what I make of all of that is that we have not addressed good immigration policy, no matter who was in a majority. We can pass a bill in the House, it doesn't pass in the Senate. We pass a bill in the Senate, it doesn't pass in the House. None of that would make major changes until we get a good immigration policy. And it's really unfortunate that our governor uses that a political football. It is not funny. The elements that put forth the effort to charge people to bring them to our border are making plenty of money from these people coming. The people are not unhappy about going to Washington because many of them get closer to where their destinations are in this country. It's a political ploy, but it does not address the issue. We have got to have a strong immigration policy for this country.
Is the governor's effort here to provide buses for those who want to go, not only from Texas, but from Arizona, does that force the issue more? Because the governor here, Governor Abbott, has said, the administration is not doing what it's supposed to be doing. You've got record number of people coming into the country illegally, and he's saying we need to get the administration's attention somehow. So what do you say to that?
I say to that he's using it as a political football instead of really encouraging members of his party to work with the Democrats to get a good immigration policy. We cannot tell other countries what to do. And these people are getting paid a lot of money to bring the people to the border. When they see that we have a very weak policy in this country, they'll keep coming. And no matter who is in the White House, no matter who is in a majority in the Congress, we need a good immigration policy. And if you could just see how happy those people feel to be reaching DC because they are closer to many of their relatives that are on the East Coast. So they're not unhappy at all. They're happy to get on those free buses and go to Washington. So we have not examined the real dynamics of what's going on. Our governor is getting a lot of, I guess he's trying to get a lot of political hits against his administration, but it's really against himself because we have got to work out an immigration policy, and we've got to have both parties working at it at the same time.
Democratic Congresswoman Eddie Bernice Johnson of Dallas, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.